What's up, everyone? It's Bryan Hornung here from Exact IT Solutions. I'm with my co-host, Reginald and Andre, down at Arc Solvers in Miami. How are you today, sir?
I am doing much better. Thank you for asking.
Much better. That's good. We want to welcome everyone to our show. This is Security Squawk podcast live recording if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube right now. Otherwise, you're probably listening to us on your walk, on your workout, maybe while you're driving to work. Andre and I just want you to know we don't get paid for this. We don't get any promotional money or anything like that. We just come here and educate you about cybersecurity and how it impacts your life and your business. We try to stay out of the geek talk and relate it to, the common everyday human being. And I'm sure if you're not in the business like we are, you're probably wondering, you hear about it, but you don't really know what the heck is going on out there. So our goal here on this channel is to bring light to this stuff so you understand it, so you understand what you need to do to protect yourself, both at home and at work. But our big ask for you is if you like anything, if you're educated, if you are enlightened, if there's anything in this podcast that you heard that changed your perspective or you were just entertained in any way, remember to share us out. Either share us out through our Facebook page, through our YouTube channel, or just share us wherever you listen to the podcast. And remember to rate us too. That's all we ask for all this content. And before we jump into it, I like to check in. I know you say you're doing better. Anything you want to report out to our audience about last week before we move into all the crazy stuff that's going out there in the last week or so?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the last 3 weeks, our company has been struggling because a lot of our customers' computers were all of a sudden just taking a dump, which is like in non-technical terms, but it was blue screening. And we were just trying different things just to see what was happening. We were asking people, if other people in our industry, if they were having that issue, and nobody else was having it basically except us. We opened tickets with Microsoft, and our clients are like just really, really getting upset because they're like, look, this has been going on for 3 weeks. We need a solution. And what we thought it wasn't it, and things like that. So it was just a really, really tough time. But the reason things are better is because we were able to figure out what the problem was. And now the sad faces are turning back to happy faces.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit last week, that you were dealing with that, and it's never fun. We also, and I'm sure everybody out there who works in our business has had to have a conversation or two with their clients about, how Microsoft botched this, and there's not a lot people can do about it. One of the things I guess I see a lot as a business owner or somebody who's not in the technical field, it's like, it's very frustrating as a business owner when you don't have the problem maybe across all your people or all your computers, or you're printing at home works, but somebody's telling you at work it doesn't work. You can see how that can be frustrating, right? So never easy to deal with, but it's things that you have to be prepared for. So that's really it. So anything else you want to add?
Yeah, and I would want to say is this is one of the things you should look for when you're looking for an IT company, an IT service company, because we over communicated with the customer every day. Literally, I was on the phone with one of the executives, letting them know what our plan was, what our next action was. And this is probably about a 25, 30 person office. And we decided, you know what, because this was happening so much and so random, we actually placed one of our technicians at their office to work out of their conference room. And so that way, as soon as the problem came up and the computer blue screen, we were there to troubleshoot and fix it. So I think you always have to partner with someone that's just not going to point fingers or just be there. And the client understood that it wasn't something wrong we were doing. They were just frustrated because they couldn't work. So just make sure that you're partnering with someone that's just not going to treat you like a redheaded stepchild, that they're going to be with you every step of that way.
Yeah. Working with a partner who owns problems there's a lot to be said for that. It's easier said than done. And I think it's something in our business that we see a lot, that, the average person who's purchasing IT services wouldn't see as regularly as we do. But yeah, there are companies out there that will literally look for every reason to not solve your problem or to get rid of you, so to speak, right? Because that's really it at the end of the day. And that's a good point there, because, I think what drives that is culture, right? So when you're looking for IT services, and this is kind of a real quick advice that I'll give to anybody who's listening and might be looking to purchase IT services or looking to, work with an IT provider or switch IT providers, ask them what their core values are. Because if they don't have them, that's a huge red flag, and they should be able to tell you what they are pretty quickly. And that'll give you a sense of the maturity of the company, because if they don't have them, they're probably not very mature, which means that I might be going out on a limb here a little bit, but you're going to be paying for them to learn. So they're going to be learning on your dime. And that's, I guess, the biggest thing that I could say is why you would want to find a company who, has a defined culture, mission, values, and probably some process built into how they deliver their service, versus your cousin, your nephew, some guy that that you're friends with, the guy at BNI who you just met who runs an IT company. Chances are they don't have these things in place. And when you're talking about hiring someone to do your tech or hiring someone to do your cybersecurity, you better make sure that company who's running your cybersecurity has all these things in place. Now, if you're just hiring a company as a help desk where you call them when things break and you're good with that level of service and you don't really feel like you need cybersecurity from anybody, then you're probably good, hiring, a company that isn't as mature. But if you want to take cybersecurity even a little bit seriously, you got to hire a company that has a little bit more experience than the average bear. That's just my 2 cents on that. So, all right, we got a lot on tap. We're going to blow through it quickly here in hopefully about 40 minutes or so. We're going to start off going through several attacks that happened this week. Then we're going to kind of dive into the ransomware task force that the U.S. government wants to set up. And then also we're going to talk about the response to the SolarWinds attack from the government that just came out last night, and more information is coming out today. So we just want to dive into that very quickly. But as we do, we're going to dissect these various cyber attacks, starting off with the one that happened in D.C. And the one that happened in D.C. was pretty interesting because at the end of the day, the police department was hacked, right? So the Metro DC Police Department is currently under a ransomware attack. And Andre, why don't you fill us in on what the heck's going on in DC?
Yeah, so the other day I messaged you because I said, and I'm jokingly saying this, but snitches get stitches. The old trick here.
I'm not joking when I say it. So.
Yeah, so essentially the Metropolitan Police Department got a cyber ransomware where they apparently kept a Excel spreadsheet, let's call it for simple terms, of all of their informants. So in the police world, there's always maybe the police catches somebody in the act of doing something or know they're doing something. So in return, what they basically say is, look, we're not going to charge you or arrest you for this. However, you need to give us the word on the street. And the police department essentially had an Excel spreadsheet of all of these informants, names, numbers, and things like that. So, and this is actually on a serious note, it's actually a very big concern because if this information gets out to the public, and let's just say you have a mob or a gang, and now they find out that such and such person has been giving, the information to the police, like they're probably wondering, how come why are our gang members always getting arrested, but like for these, like they're trying to figure out like what's going on, who within the group is talking to the police. So now the ransomware group is basically saying, if you don't pay us, we're going to go ahead and we're going to release this. And literally people's lives can be in danger, regardless if they're snitches or not. That's not the point. People's lives are in danger.
Absolutely. And I guess that's the big thing that these ransomware groups like to do now is create that sense of fear. And I feel like a lot of online scams are kind of that way. But we're talking about the data that they were able to get their hands on above and beyond what you stated. We're talking about investigations that are ongoing, the Capitol riot information that they have was reportedly in this data set that was exfiltrated from the network. So there's a lot of information here, and I've talked about it, I believe, on this podcast, and I definitely have talked about it on my YouTube channel, where there's a subset of cyber criminals out there on the dark web who are going through all this stolen data, and then they're going to the patients or the customers or the clients or the victims of the victims, and they're saying, hey, we have this medical record in our possession, and we're going to go out and we're going to release to your friends, your family, your company that you own, and we're going to tell them that you're being treated for cancer, for mental health, or whatever it is that's in that medical file. That is what these guys are doing. They're digging through the data and using the details in the data to exploit people even more than just ransomware, right? So that's where we're at with this, right? And do you know if they have actually reached out to gangs, or is that just a threat?
Yeah, I think it's the threat to try to get the police department to pay up.
Got it. Okay. So, yeah, I covered this on my YouTube yesterday, and this is going to be interesting to see where this goes. Just to see where this ends up. Where do you think it's going to end up?
Well, it's because you're dealing with life and death here. The police department should not pay based on us knowing why and things like that. But it's going to be, it's going to be. I really don't know where it's going to end up. They shouldn't pay, but if they paid, I would understand.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because somebody asked me to do a video on why we can't catch these guys, and I am going to do a video on why we can't just catch these guys. Because they hide themselves. That's the end of the day. They do a very good job of hiding themselves, and they're probably, if they're not using tools that obfuscate who they are through countries which the United States authorities have no jurisdiction in, they're probably in a country where they have no jurisdiction. Yeah. So that's what makes this even more challenging, and I'll definitely be putting out more information about that in more detail. But that's really it, and it really depends on who's behind this, and if if the United States authorities have the jurisdiction to go after them. So I'll talk about life or death. Moving into this one, which is a cyber attack disrupting a cancer care center. Looks like it's Emory University Hospital. And their high-tech radiation treatment delayed or disrupted in recent days after a medical systems company with U.S. headquarters suffered a cyber attack. Now, this is Elekta, which is a Swedish company with global headquarters in Stockholm, and they provide precision cancer radiation treatment software to some of the most prestigious healthcare facilities in the country. Yale New Haven Health Systems was among those cancer care machines that went down over last week due to the breach, only to come back online this Monday. Here we go again, Andre, with more people in the healthcare field dealing with ransomware. And in this case, which many of these healthcare ransomware or cyber attacks haven't led to an impact on patient care, but this one obviously has.
Yeah, and this is kind of like a stark difference, because it's like this one is disrupting them in the sense where the first one, it's going to be giving out information, where this one, it's like they can no longer use their insulin pumps, for example, because of this disruption that they're having.
Yeah. So, I mean, here you are with a European company who actually had the attack, right? This is another example of a supply chain attack that's now impacting these hospitals, because these hospitals decided that they wanted to use this software for whatever reason. And now the software had a breach. And so, and at the same time, all these hospitals now are dealing with the breach. And they can't provide patient care. So, now more than ever, we see these attacks becoming more and more critical, and why people need to start doing things the right way, planning for them the right way, standardizing on a cybersecurity program, whether that means you're protecting networks and computers and hardware, or you're protecting the software that people use. We're seeing unprecedented cyber attacks and ransomware attacks happening where the attack vector is poorly written software. SolarWinds, Microsoft Exchange, and now this Electa is a third example in probably less than 3 months of cyber attacks that affect other businesses, and cyber criminals use legitimate software that people are running to get into these systems. So, yep. And then it's just going to keep happening. It's just going to keep going in this direction, and, good luck. So, we got a school district in New York. And why we point this out is because school districts are a big target. They constantly get hit. And now we have a 5,700 student district in New York they're investigating to determine whether any sensitive data may have been impacted. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it was. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So they draw a comparison to Florida, to Broward County. And you know what happened there. So, we're going to find out what's going to happen here with the Guilderland Central School District up in New York. So, another popular, what's up?
I think we can think of a way to stop the ransomware attacks that we talked about from last week.
What's that?
Whoever Apple uses to stop the ransomware, have those guys go visit all these places. We got to talk about that too.
Well, they didn't stop it.
Well, they didn't stop it, but the ransomware group essentially agreed to remove the documents
for now.
For now, but hey, that's some guys.
But here's the thing, and what I said is, if they don't, if nothing else comes out, we know Quanta paid the ransom, or we know Apple said to Quanta, just pay it and get rid of this. If we start to see things come back out again, then that means Quanta and Apple are playing hardball. I got a sneaky suspicion that we're not going to hear much about this anymore.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that goes. But you got to assume that that's the case. Shipping companies are increasingly becoming more of a target. And this is Bourbon, a shipping company out of France. They're an offshore vessel owner. And it's become a target of a cyber attack that affected its company-wide computer network earlier this month. And the only reason we bring this up is because shipping is so important. And y'all remember what happened when that ship got stuck in the Suez Canal?
Mm-hmm.
When cyber criminals start attacking commerce and trade and the massive amount of products and oil and everything that is needed to be delivered to you as a consumer is probably coming into the country on a ship, or it's being extracted out of the ground and brought somewhere else for refining on a ship, right? So when cyber criminals are attacking these types of vessels or these types of companies, they're messing with world economic trade. And when you bring things like this to a grinding halt, that affects markets, that affects businesses, that affects prices, that creates inflation. There's a lot of things that ride on the backs of these shipping companies that they're well aware of. Plus, they get paid on the successful delivery of this stuff. And when you're talking about cyber attacks affecting this industry at a higher level than other industries, it's a big concern. It seems like the cyber criminals have zeroed in on the industries they want to target and why they want to target them to get more bang for their buck. Healthcare, trade, commerce, shipping, this is trade, right? And security, police and government. And these are the big ones that are being attacked, along with private businesses that are being attacked, like Microsoft, like SolarWinds, the companies that hold the keys to the kingdom. Now, that's not to say, the mom and pop stores, restaurants, accounting, insurance, you name it, those types of the Main Street type businesses that people like to go to, they are still being attacked as well. We just don't hear about them in the news. And that's the important thing to take away from this. It's, when your insurance agent on Main Street gets a cyber attack or a ransomware attack, you'll be lucky if anybody outside of that office hears about it.
Yeah.
Right. So, DigitalOcean, a big cloud company, very big cloud company, has emailed customers a warning of a data breach involving customer billing data. The cloud giant told customers in an email on Wednesday that it has confirmed an unauthorized exposure of details associated with the billing profile in their DigitalOcean account. An unauthorized person gained access to some of your billing account details through a flaw that has since been fixed over a 2-week window between April 9th and April 22nd. What are your thoughts here on this?
Well, I like the fact that they said that it was only the last 4 digits of the payment card. So at least they have some type of security in play where they capture the card, but then they don't necessarily keep the entire number. Because I've seen some other scenarios where it's like the full credit card is like, come on, this is 2021. There's better systems in play there.
Yeah. Or the worst response, which is we don't believe any customer data has been impacted or compromised. And then, we find out a month later on a Friday afternoon at 5:00 that wasn't the case. So it fixed the flaw. And DigitalOcean's chief security guy, Tyler, said 1% of its billing profiles were affected in the breach, but declined to address our specific questions, including how the vulnerability was discovered and which authorities have been informed. They're in Europe, so they are subject to GDPR, and they raised $100 million and another $50 million round after last. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. They don't talk about how they got hacked, right? And how the flaw was. So we don't really know how sophisticated it was. Or did somebody just leave the door open for people to find this information? Kind of like we see all the time, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's just run down. Security Boulevard put a nice article here on the 10 major cyber attacks witnessed globally in Q1 2021. So, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, we're not going to hear about all the cyber attacks that happen out there, especially when the businesses are a lot smaller. But here are the ones that kind of top the news, so to speak, right? There's been a lot, right? But these are the ones that were the tippy top. And guess what? There's 9 of them. Guess how many months are in a quarter?
Yeah.
That's 3 major cyber attacks a quarter. That's roughly a little over 1 a week, right? And these are big companies, right? Now, think about all those small companies that are out there that are getting hit too, that where this doesn't even make it on anyone's radar. Like, that's the kind of picture we want people to understand. If you think you're not going to get hit with this and you're not doing anything about it right now, you're sorely mistaken. You're going to get hit. It's just a matter of time before they find you, right? It's like trying to find, I guess, a needle in a haystack, so to speak, but they're going to find the needle because they have so many damn people looking, and that's just the reality. So, Channel 9, this is our #1 hit this year. Big broadcaster out in Australia. The channel was unstable, and it was unable to air its Sunday news bulletin and several other shows. With the unavailability of internet access at its Sydney headquarters, and the attack also interrupted operations at the network's publishing business, and some of the publishing tools were also down. Harris Federation, #2. And you want to chime in on any of these? I'm just going to blow through them real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
London-based company, Harris Federation, suffered a ransomware attack. It resulted in over 37,000 students being able to unaccess their coursework and correspondence. CNA Financial was a recent one at the end of March. Big insurance firm that actually provides cyber insurance. They were hit with ransomware. Florida Water System, which Andre and I covered on this show several weeks ago. Another big one. Microsoft Exchange. I don't know. To me, this is #1. I don't know how this isn't #5, but whatever. Massive vulnerabilities discovered and exploited by Hafnium. There's other security researchers who found the same stuff around the same time. To me, this is just, a coincidence. It wasn't like people were working together or there's information out there. As hackers, as security researchers, we build on what we know from other attacks. And that's how you get to something like Microsoft Exchange vulnerabilities. It's not like somebody's a super genius. It's just lots of man hours pouring over lots of code where people have the time and the manpower and resources to figure out how to break this stuff and use those vulnerabilities or use the fact that you broke something to their advantage. Bombardier, which I didn't hear about until I saw this article, but they got nailed in February 2021. Maybe I knew it and I forgot about it, but that's a big one. Acer, #7, their computer system, another technology company getting hit in this list. University of Highlands, they got hit with Cobalt Strike tool, and they were dealing with a cyber incident that affected 13 colleges. Sierra Wireless, another company in the tech space that deals with a lot of IoT products. Never good when an IoT vendor gets hit, especially when most people are putting more and more IoT devices in their homes and in their businesses on a daily basis. And #10 here, Excellion supply chain attack. This supply chain attack was big just because they were able to target a file transfer system within the software, and a lot of their companies were affected by the breach, including a lot of grocery stores like Kroger, who was named in this article. So this is just the first quarter of 2021, folks, and we just wanted to highlight it and bring it to your attention so you can see that the cyber criminals, again, they're winning the war. They're doing a lot more. And, if you're not taking our information here and running with it and making sure that your own company is secure, and you're burying your head in the sand, then when you do have a problem one day, you're going to probably think back to this and what I'm saying and go, man, that guy was right. This is just the beginning of what we're about to see.
Mm-hmm.
Why our government has a shitload of different efforts going on at the same time, which, coming from the government world, I'm not too surprised to see that. Eventually, somebody's going to come along someday and say, okay, we have too many different things going on at all these different levels of government. We need to consolidate. That's what I've seen in our history in our government. I'm talking going back to 1999, 2000. I was involved in something called NMCI that the Navy rolled out, and that they had to hit the reset button on that 3 or 4 times until they figured out how they did it. The original vendor that won that contract was Ross Perot's company, if you remember that guy.
Yeah.
And by the time NMCI got rolled out, I think the contract had changed 4 times between when it was initially awarded and when it actually, boots to the ground was actually, implemented. I think it was 4 different contracting companies that took over the contract along the way, if I remember correctly. I'm not so sure about that, but that's kind of like our history of how we do things. And here we go again with this ransomware task force. And the reason I wanted to pick on this is because their bright idea, which I think is an awful idea, is...
Before you say it,
go.
There's a Ronald Reagan. I don't know if you remember this saying he used to always say, is the most terrifying words in the English language is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I do remember him saying that. And if I ever heard that from somebody, I would just laugh. But here's the bright idea of our scout government think tank people. But to take and put your sights on cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, because that's the method that these cyber criminals have chosen to use for you to get your files back or for you to pay them to unlock the files. Bitcoin is the payment of choice for them because it's easily moved from your bank account to their bank account. It's easily moved from country to country. And it doesn't take very long for the transaction to occur, which means you get your files back quicker.
Right.
Now, the problem with this line of thought is we are already seeing other ransomware groups switch to other currencies like Monero. We're already seeing other ransomware software being programmed so you can send gift cards instead of cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. And back in the day, before cryptocurrency was what it is today, it still existed. It was a form of payment early on with ransomware. But I know most people that got hit with ransomware 5-7 years ago, they were driving to the 7-Eleven and buying Western Union telegrams and sending those. They weren't using Bitcoin. And there's nothing stopping these guys from going right back to that methodology. Mm-hmm. They don't care how long it takes them to get their money. They know they're going to get it. It's going to be more of an inconvenience for you, the victim, because now you got to pay somebody or you got to send somebody to go get a money order or a Western Union money order to send off to another country.
Right.
And then you got to wait for them to go to a Western Union spot and collect their money. And once they have that person, that pigeon or that carrier say, yeah, I got the money, we're good to go, then your file unlocking process starts. So I think this is just, them trying to wag the dog, so to speak, here, and grabbing for straws on ways that they can control the crypto markets or giving the people a logical reason for them to regulate cryptocurrency. Oh, it's because of cyber criminals and Bitcoin. That's why they have to watch it. No, because once they do that, the cyber criminals are just going to change their tactics.
Yep.
And ransomware is still going to exist. It's still going to be a problem at a very alarming rate, even more so than it is now. It's just Bitcoin makes it easier for them to get money, and it makes it easier for you to get your files back quicker. At the end of the day, they don't care how long it takes for you to get your files back. You could ask for your files to be encrypted 6 months from now. They don't care. As long as you pay them, they'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reality, and that's what I don't like about this. Is there anything in here that you don't like about that I didn't cover?
Well, I'll talk about something that they are going to, according to this executive order that that Biden is going to sign. They're going to be creating kind of like what the National Transportation Safety Board, when an aircraft actually, like when it crashes, and a team goes in and basically finds out why it happened, and then give recommendations so that there's more like of a industry standard. Yeah. So another agency is going to be created, and essentially after a breach, because they're saying that the FBI's job is to is to investigate the crime. Then you have the different agencies within Homeland Security that's supposed to secure, but there's nobody that actually puts a standard, and that's what's going to happen now.
Right, and that's what the last article I have up here that we're going to cover is all about, right? Mm-hmm. He announced last night in his speech, and I guess they're talking about it today, that they want to require new standards, which is awesome. Have standards for software development, have standards for network infrastructure when you build a network, have standards. Who's going to check it? Who's going to make sure that businesses are doing it this way?
Yeah.
And again, now we have an effort by the executive branch to do what, at the end of the day, they can only control who's doing business with federal contracts. They can't tell private businesses what to do. They can only make recommendations. So here's my thing to you, right? We have NIST, right? It's already out there. It's a framework. Every business should be following it, but most businesses choose not to. Mm-hmm. We have CMMC, right? Right now we have NIST 800-171. It's going to become CMMC. Defense contractors, if you do defense contracting, you have to follow CMMC eventually. So now they're just taking this from the defense sector and only making it a requirement for defense, and they're going to make this for all federal contracts, which I already said is going to happen. I've been warning prospects and customers that this is coming from the federal level. If you do federal contracting, this is coming. And then what's going to happen? It's going to go down to the states, right? Mm-hmm. And then all these private businesses that do federal contracting and state contracting are now going to be required to do all this stuff, right? And they're going to be signing contracts with language that says you have to do X, Y, and Z to protect your data and do cybersecurity the right way. So what do you think is going to happen in the supply chain when these businesses who have to sign off on these standards in their contracts, what do you think that they're going to put in their contracts to the people that they're giving business to?
Yeah, they have to follow the same standards.
Exactly. Yeah. So like if we have to follow these standards with our client, the federal government, then you have to follow the same standards because you can't be the weakest link in our supply chain. Mm-hmm. The other thing I need to point out, what people probably aren't aware of, is that the framework includes the supply chain. So you have to consider that. If you're going to follow the framework and you're going to implement the framework, then you have to make sure that your supply chain, aka your partners and vendors, are also adhering to the same level of standard, or at least a level of standard that you're comfortable with, so that they don't become the reason that your company gets breached.
Yeah.
That's it for me, brother. I'm done. I'm dropping the mic. You got anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just don't hope that this, I hope it doesn't just become a sheet of paper that somebody just, a business owner just sends over to the supply chain, the other, their vendor.
A box checking exercise, which is all cybersecurity is right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right. The concern is valid because how many companies call our business and they want cybersecurity, but then when you really get down to it, you ask them the questions, they just want to check a box.
Exactly.
There's a company I'm thinking of right off the top of my head who asked us to come in and do a CMMC assessment on them, and they would only let us touch 3 computers in a 40-some computer environment.
Right.
And I'm like, well, we're not going to be able to do your assessment if you don't let us look at everything.
Right.
Well, the reason they didn't want to look at us to look at everything, because when we went on site to look at what they had, we asked them in a questionnaire, do you use IoT devices? Do you, no. We do everything by the book. We keep everything segregated. We walk in, they have a controlled access system, but doors are propped open. They have, I don't know what kind of camera it was, but I know it wasn't a Ring camera, but it looked like a Ring camera. It looked like something you could buy on Amazon, all throughout the office. And it's like, this is why they didn't want us looking at their stuff, because they knew they had all this stuff and they know they're not supposed to. Like, propping doors open when you're supposed to have controlled access is a big no-no. Right?
So the only way, one of the only ways this can actually be enforced is kind of like how, like here in Florida, for example, we have the Department of Health, where they do spot checks on, the restaurants to make sure the cockroaches and the food is separated. So like, that's really like the only way it can be enforced, unless it's an affidavit by the IT company that basically says, we can say that this client is check marking all the boxes, or we're marking all the boxes for the client.
I mean, one idea that I have is everybody, I don't know, I got a lot of ideas, but one of the things is we gave a shitload of money away during COVID. Why don't we give a shitload of money away to people so they do cybersecurity correctly, right? Give them a loan, right? Just like you did with COVID. Give them a loan, and it's forgivable if you achieve a certain level of standard, and you have to prove that standard every year, right? That's one way you could tackle this. Give everybody a loan to go if the government wants to tackle this, instead of spending money with bureaucrats and red tape, and lobbyists are going to get involved, and it's going to cost tons and tons of money. Give money to businesses, let them go build their cybersecurity program. Just like if you say, hey, we're going to give you a loan to run a business in a disadvantaged area. Hey, we're going to front you the money so you take care of your cybersecurity, and you only have to pay a certain amount of it back if you attain a certain level and you maintain that level throughout the term of the loan. You make it a 30-year loan. Most businesses don't even stay in business for 30 years. Yeah. Make it a 30-year loan, and at any point in time they fail, they have to pay it back within, an accelerated period. I don't know. That's one idea, because Jesus, I saw a ton of money be handed out left and right because of COVID.
Yep.
And people could have did whatever they want with that money, right? You could have went and spent it on marketing. You could have went and spent it on whatever you wanted, quite frankly. Let's do a more controlled way of doing it. If businesses are going to sit here and go, we don't have the money to do it, then you're just going to have a bunch of businesses out there that are not secure.
Unfortunately, Bryan, that makes too much sense. So it's not going to happen.
Well, maybe one day I'll run CISA. Who knows? So, all right, brother. I appreciate your time. Thanks for your contributions to the show. As always, remember, everyone, Andre and I don't get paid, so share us out. We're going to end the show. We'll see y'all next week. Take care, everyone.